And joining us right now, great pleasure to welcome one of the co-authors of a very interesting book. It's called You Are Not Your Brain, the 4-Step Solution for Changing Bad Habits, Ending Unhealthy Thinking, and Taking Control of Your Life. We're joined by Dr. Rebecca Gladding today by telephone. And Doctor, thanks for being with us today. How are you?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Good to have a chance to talk to you. Enjoyed reading through the book over the last week or so, and a lot of interesting things here. The brain is a complicated piece of machinery, but you kind of shed some light on things in here that I didn't know a lot about, so congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks.
We are not our brain, but the brain really kind of controls a lot of things in our body, doesn't it? Not only the physical aspect, but obviously the mental and emotional. And it's difficult, I guess, to figure out how it works. But you've kind of come up with some interesting research here. How did you go about doing that?
Well, some of it is basic kind of knowledge of the brain. I mean, understanding brain areas and how they work. One of which that we talk about the most in the book is the habit center, which the real name for it is basal ganglia, but it's the part of the brain that's involved in automatic thoughts and behaviors, actions. And this is so important for us because most of us live our lives not really thinking or paying attention to what we're doing. And if we just follow our brains around and let the brain run the show, we'll end up doing things that are, pleasurable or good in the short term, but that have longer-term consequences for us. And so what we wanted to show people with the title, You Are Not Your Brain, and, with the thrust of the information in the book, is that just because you have these thoughts, just because you have this urge to go do something, doesn't mean you have to act on it. And in reality, you can veto almost any kind of urge or thought that you're having if you're aware of it and if you're paying attention.
I thought it was really fascinating because we all go through it, obviously. You see something or you think about doing something, and in most cases you don't do it if you know it's bad for you or whatever. But I always wondered, where do these thoughts come from? Well, why does your brain tell you to do something and you know it's wrong, or maybe you shouldn't do it for yourself? Where do they come from? Do we know?
Well, it's a mix. I mean, some of it is pure animal instinct. The hypothalamus is a part of the brain that is involved with all of our drives. So thirst, hunger, sex, those are things that are instinctual. They're really not in our control when they pop up. Obviously, once they come up, we do what we want with them. We say, I just ate 10 minutes ago, I'm not going to eat again. So some of them come from that. But when you're talking about negative thoughts, when you're talking about, I feel stressed out, so I'm going to go eat a piece of, cake because cake makes me feel better. What you're really talking about is at that point is a learned behavior that you've taught your brain to pair stress or boredom or anxiety or whatever with some kind of unhealthy behavior for you. So there's that. And then when you get to the idea of unhelpful thinking or thoughts, that can actually go all the way back to childhood. How people treated you. Were you bullied? Did your brother or sister tell you were, say something negative to you when you were little? Did your parents not really pay attention to you and help you grow up in this secure way? So there's many different reasons as to why we might have these thoughts or these urges, and that's kind of the goal of the book, is to help people figure those out and then design a way to get to the other side of them.
Yeah, you talk in the book about, obviously, I guess between the ages of maybe 5 and 10, somewhere in there is where you're most influenced, I guess, that you remember. I mean, obviously, those years before that, but you don't always remember as a child. But those years you do remember things that happened to you, and then that can really put an imprint in you for certain thoughts. So that's one thing. But I like how you describe in the book, we'll get to some of the steps in a second, where even those thoughts come up, you can train yourself to just either ignore it or ignore those thoughts, to do something, or I guess ignoring it. That's the best way to put it, right? I mean, if it's something you don't want to do, those thoughts come up, train yourself to kind of blow them off, right?
Yeah, I mean, with the thoughts, what you want to do is you want to see it, and then you want to make a decision.
Right.
Do I want to believe this? Do I want to follow through with this? Or am I going to debunk this? Am I going to dismiss it because it's really not true about me? And that's what you're trying to do.
Well, the 4 steps that you talk about, and 1 is relabel, 2 is reframe, 3 is refocus, and 4 is to revalue. Obviously, we have limited time, but if you just do a capsule summary of each one, that'd be great.
Oh, sure. So relabel is really about enhancing your awareness. I mean, you cannot change what you can't see. So you have to be able to start identifying these negative thoughts, these urges, these impulses, and just call them what they are. You make a mental note. Oh, that's stress. Oh, I'm having a craving for chocolate. Oh, I'm really angry right now. Whatever it is. You just label it. You say, this is what's happening. Step 2, reframe, is where you're really trying to change your perception of how important this message coming from your brain is. And what we teach people to say is, oh, it's not me. It's just my brain generating this impulse. It's not representative of me. I don't have to listen to this right now. Step 3, refocus, is really about changing your attention, directing your attention towards something that's good for you, even while you're feeling these uncomfortable thoughts or impulses or sensations. The idea is not to distract yourself by any means, but to not let that initial thought take over and rule your life. And then step 4, revalue, is where you take a step back and you're able to clearly see that these thoughts and urges and impulses are just coming from the brain. They're just feelings. They're just sensations, but they don't define you, and they really have no value. And if you're able to really see that, then you can, value yourself to the point of saying, I'm not going to give in to this short-term reward, but I'm going to go for the long-term, the thing that's more important to me, over time. And that's basically what we're trying to do with the 4 steps.
Yeah, and you talk about it as well. We touched on it a little bit already, but the mind or the brain always seems to come up with the worst-case scenario of something you
right.
see. And I guess that kind of goes back to, like you said, animal instinct. The old days, you had to, run away from animals that were chasing or something like that. But that still pops up today, and really you can train yourself to not think that way, but for some reason the brain keeps coming up with those thoughts. So that's interesting.
Right, yeah, and that step 2, reframe, there's actually a part in there where you can say, oh, this is a thinking error. I'm catastrophizing.
Right.
I'm going to the worst-case scenario. I'm black and white thinking, whatever it might be, to help you really see that what the brain's doing isn't helpful to you in that moment.
Yeah.
That it's not true.
Yeah, brain is our friend, but it can also be our enemy.
Indeed.
Well, it's a fascinating book, and it really is a lot of great information in it. It's called You Are Not Your Brain, the 4-Step Solution. We've been talking with Dr. Rebecca Gladding today. She's written it along with Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz. And Doctor, give out a website that can get a hold of the book or get a hold of you if they like.
Sure. It's youarenotyourbrain.com.
Oh, that's easy enough. Yeah, well, it's a lot of helpful information, and appreciate you joining us today. We look forward to perhaps talking to you again down the road. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks so much.
Great.